Hello friends! Catalan nationalists often call their adversaries fascists. Have you noticed? On nationalist television that word sounds constantly, but do you know what they have never done? Explain it. And I wonder, why? Do they really know what it means? Do we? To understand it, I have consulted several sources, and I have discovered that it's very easy to explain fascism if we first explain two other concepts. So, here we go. Patriotism is the pride for the one's land and for the people who live in it. Languages, races, cultures, everything that's typical of our land. Sense of belonging, because we share ties with our peers. The patriot feels part of something bigger. Shared pride. The patriot takes pride in the achievements of other compatriots as if they were his own. No need for enemies, and no need to encourage difference. If the others are patriots, that's right, but if not, nothing happens. The patriot is already happy being the way he is. Nationalism closely resembles patriotism, but these 2 points change. Nationalism does need an enemy, someone to compare and to overcome. This enemy is usually right next door. It's a country, a race, or a culture with which you don't have to mix to avoid losing purity. A need to encourage difference. It's not enough to know that we are different. We must enhance the differential features, be the culture, the language, or religion. You have to be as different from the enemy as possible, because resembling him will be so low. And finally, the nation. This is the main feature from nationalism. The land is identified with the people, whether by race, culture, religion or language, and doesn't tolerate mixing. If the nationalist people are different, they must have their own nation with their own borders. If a foreigner comes from outside, he must leave his culture at the door and integrate into the nation, because foreign culture doesn't contribute to the nation at all. Do you see? That's nationalism. And finally, we reach fascism. Fascism contains all the features of nationalism, but it goes much further. To get started, imposition. Fascism imposes its ideology in all areas. Violence. Fascism encourages violent acts. It only condemns them if they are committed against the regime, but if they are done in its name, it encourages and justifies them. Totalitarian occupation of public space. Fascism fills the streets with its symbols in an abusive way to intimidate the discrepant. The nation is everything. If you don't accept the nation, you are a traitor. It's the land that has rights, not the individual. The language is the language of the land, the culture of the land. People are only the people if they support the fascist regime. If not, they are traitors, and that's far much worse than being the enemy. The enemy is to blame for all evil. End of empathy. The enemy is dehumanized and all empathy is cut off. The enemy is not a person, but a beast. And so you can make fun of him and insult him. If you sympathize with the enemy, you are also a traitor. Everything will come with the nation, especially the social conquests. The crisis will end and life will be better, but only the nation arrives, the solution is impossible. Populism. The leaders tell the people what to do, but at the same time they affirm that the people are the true protagonists and they are only obeying the people. Expansionism. Fascism seeks similar cultures to assimilate them and extend their borders. History manipulation. A manipulated history is built in which the enemy is evil and is always to blame for humiliating and defeating the nation, which is more noble and older and has a glorious past that is lost in time. This is true in all fascisms. Directed culture. Fascism decides which culture is appropriate to promote it and which is inappropriate to repress it. Politicized media. propaganda is constantly issued to extol the leaders of the regime and denigrate the enemy. Indoctrination in schools. Education puts itself at the service of the regime and instills in children the love of the nation and the hatred of the enemy. The fascist teacher will never tell you to try to understand the discrepant. He will tell you that he is your enemy, that he has always been bad and that he will not change. Without alternatives, fascism despises plurality and alternative plans. For fascism, it's always yes or no, black or white, now or never. That's why it always used the referendum as a weapon. The regime controls the result and uses it before the world to justify its actions because they are the mandate of the people. Political police. The police respond to political power and persecute the dissenting while turning a blind eye to the excesses of their followers. Paramilitary forces, repression commands, are created with the approval of the leaders. These commands recruit volunteers to persecute and intimidate the dissenters and carry out violent actions. Army. Fascism is usually militaristic, and if it has an army, it uses it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is fascism. However, I want to tell you that fascism has experienced a mutation lately. We can call it Fascism 2.0 or Neo-Fascism. This mutation is the same as the good old fascism. It does the same, but it's in disguise, because everyone knows that fascism in Europe caused the greatest horrors. So, Neo-Fascism, even if it's extremist, is presented in any political color. Even if it allows violence, it disguises itself as a pacifist. Even if it's totalitarian, it disguises itself as democracy, because most of its followers are not fascists, but people they are cheating. But if you know fascism, it's very easy to discover. You just have to ignore the words it dresses up with and look at what it does. Not in its words, but in its deeds. Then you'll see that fascism is Mussolini, Hitler and Franco, but not only them. It has become clear. Well, now I'll tell you something that a fascist will never ever tell you. Trust no one at first, not even me, because my opinion is worth no more than yours. Contrast things, investigate and distrust everything, especially if you like what you hear. Only then we'll break the mental framework and we'll find the truth. Let's be clear. Hablemos claro.